Hello, I'm Dale from Glenarley Reeds, and I'm doing this video in response to questions I keep getting about RH, moisture control and the effect on reeds. The first thing I've got to get out of the way is that it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter if you live in a humid climate or a dry climate. The atmospheric conditions are not humidity. The atmospheric conditions as far as humidity go are not going to affect your reeds. You should plant them in the pipes. That's the first thing you've got to get out of the way. Second thing is, don't send me data based on these things. These measure RH. That's why it says RH. You can't measure moisture content of reeds using RH. You can, I can't even imagine the equation. I don't even know why people use these. They come in little bagpipe things. Anyway, don't send me data from these. These cost about $2.50 each. We do stock them for clients because quite a few people tend to break them for some reason, so we do stock them. They cost us about, let's say, less than $2.50 each, but they're whatever they are, but they're not something to do. Well, don't give me the data from them anyway. You can allow them to do what you like. So the next thing is, our breath is the air that comes out of our mouth is saturated air. Saturated air means it can't absorb any more moisture, so it's 100% RH. Another term. So when we blow out, when we expel air, it's saturated. Will not absorb any more moisture. So we can check that. We can get a hygrometer and we blow our mouth here and do it. And you see 2 breaths, 3 breaths, it's 99.9, so it's 100% RH. This doesn't have 3 digits past the decimal place. So basically I'm healthy, aren't I? The air coming out of my body is exactly what it's supposed to be. Now, if we have a tube, if we put saturated air on one end and we have saturated air coming out the other, like we've just seen, the air in the middle stands a really good chance of being saturated also. Now our bag is no different. So we have our blow pipe going in, we have our drones coming out, and in the middle we have a bag, a pressurised bag, holding our breath. Now that breath is saturated air, 100% RH. One of the questions come up is why some people say it might be 75% RH in your bag, some people say 40%. I've had it from 40% up to 75 in some of the questions that we've had. Well, I'm sorry, that's a whole lot of piffle. If it came from your breath and it went into your bag, it's saturated, so it's 100% RH, and it's just that simple. Now we get our bag, we get our glow stick, we get our meter, and set it to RH, put it in the hole. The other drain holes are blocked up, other stops are blocked up. Now we can see 10 breaths, the bag's full, and we've got the air coming out is saturated 100% RH. So because the bag is pressurised, when you're playing it, it's pressurised. So it doesn't matter if you're in Singapore and it's 90% humidity, 95% humidity. The bag is under pressure. The humidity can't get into the bag because the pressure is forcing it out. The air is always going out of your drones, it's always going out of your chanter. It can't get back up. Now, somebody says, yeah, but it can come back in through your drones. I don't know. Atmospheric pressure isn't enough. And the bag, minimum we have in these bags is 16, 18 inches water gauge. So there's no way atmospheric conditions are going to affect in the bag. So they're not going to affect your reads. It's as simple as that. There it is, there's the test. I can't do any more than that. Now, the other thing that came up was the moisture control systems. What have we got? A moisture control system. Well, so this is a moisture control system. This is a clay. It's a clay composite, a clay medium. It's same medium that the police and emergency services throw on the road to soak up oil and fuel and stuff after a spill or an accident and stuff. And it's got an absorption rate. The clay's got an absorption rate that at its best is about 25%. So every 100 grams of that can hold up to 25 grams of water. Pretty simple. Now, how it works is pretty simple also. It goes inside a pressurised bag. We blow the air into the bag. The air, our saturated air, goes through those vent holes, through the medium, out through the tube, and the tube is connected to our chanter stop, so that air is the air feeding our chanter route. And theoretically, this dries out all the air. So, let's test it. So, we put our meter onto where our chanter would be, and we blow air through it. Now this is the air coming from my lung that I'm blowing into this device is exactly the same as the air that you would have inside your bag, because it's all coming from your lung, from your breath. It's not a bellows system. This canister has been dried in the microwave. I mean, normally we dry them overnight in a vacuum to make sure they're 100% in the seal container, same as the silica gel, but for all intent and purposes this has just been done in the microwave. So we have our meter, we have a blow. And we can see within 3 breaths we're up 99% something. So that means that the air going through this device and reaching our reed is exactly the same air that would be reaching the reed if we didn't have this device, as far as the moisture content, the RH. It would be saturated. The meter tells us that, and that's what it is. The reason is simple, because that size of canister, with the airflow, the medium cannot extract the moisture from our breath fast enough because of the velocity of the air going through it. And it's the same as silica gel. Silica gel is exactly the same result. The only difference is silica gel has a 40% take up, in other words a 40% efficiency, so it can hold, for every 100 grams of silica gel it can hold 40 grams of moisture. But it has about the same take-up rate as this. This was actually marginally better, but which surprised us. But anyway, that's what it is. So, rounding it off, you can see what's going on. Now, how much moisture is going into the bag? That's sort of important. If we're using one of those devices, for example, we have moisture. You'll see them. You'll have moisture control systems that go into blow sticks. Some of them have silica gel, some of them have clay. Now, they normally have a tube with perforations through it. So the moisture can only get through where the perforations are. Obviously, it's stretched metal type perforations. There's going to be a huge surface area for the moisture to come in contact with the medium. If you had holes, I don't think anyone uses holes. Holes would be the most inefficient thing that you could use, because holes are very small and they'd give you very little surface area. So I think you would find most of those would be some sort of a mesh, either stretch metal mesh or a heavily perforated type of material, but you will not find them just, you know, with holes or anything in them, because it'd just be so inefficient, it would be pointless. The other thing is, you've got to weigh how much you get in there. So let's say you could get 20 grams of crystal of silica into one of these things or whatever. So you say, well, you talk silica because it's the most efficient. So if we put 20 in there, so that means that we have 8 grams of moisture before it's worthless, before it serves no useful purpose. So how long does it take us to get 8 grams of moisture would be the next thing. Now we can measure that too. We know exactly how that goes because of the bag. Now in this particular bag we use a moisture tube. So moisture tube, we blow through the moisture tube. Some of the air will condensate in the tube, as you can see. This particular tube, it's a tube that we make, and it has no hole in the end of the baffle, so all the air has to go down. So it forces the air to change direction, which means that you get a better rate of condensation within the tube, and you get less chance of your saliva travelling past that point. For that amount, a little amount that does, we have a perforated tube at the end with a sponge over it, and that will collect any moisture that comes past that point. We have the valve at the end, so that while you're playing, you can keep your blow stick in and you can just tip it up and get moisture out, or you can pull out your blow stick and tip it out. But you don't have to worry about a valve in your blow stick, or you know, a little moose valve in your stock or anything like that, because the valve's at the end. So what we do, we weigh that before we start. We know exactly how much it weighs, and then we play it, and then we see how much it is. Now in 20 minutes of playing, the young fella generates about 14 grams of spit, about a tablespoon of spit. So that's 20 minutes. So when you think about it, if you had X amount of medium, and you knew that you're going to do 14 grams in 20 minutes, it's a rate, you could work out how much of that, if that was 100% efficient, which we've seen clearly it's not, but let's say it was 100% efficient, you could work out exactly how much of the medium you would need if you had 100% take up from the moisture. And because it's not active, because it's inert, you're never going to get 100%, you barely get a few percent. But anyway, it is what it is. So that's how we know how much moisture is going into it. Most of the moisture that comes in this thing is from spit. The moisture that goes into your bag is in the air, the humid air, the saturated air that goes to your reeds, that passes out and goes into your bag and circulates around. So we try and stop the spit going down. And that's why normally when we trail our pipes, we normally pick the chanter up first before we trail. That way when we trail them, the spit can't dribble back down your gooseneck into your chanter reed. Well, you do see, sometimes you see people trailing with their chanter hanging. Obviously there's an issue around that. But anyway, it is what it is. So that's how we know how much moisture we're using. Now the only other thing we have to know is how much moisture is in the reeds. Now I've got 2 reeds. So this reed's been hanging around out here for all day, basically 4 or 5 hours, and it's cane reed obviously. Today, as you can hear, there's a bit of lightning around. It's been a bit of drizzly rain on and off, and you know, at the moment it's 77% RH, so humidity's getting up there. It was 84% at one stage. So this has been hanging around, and we measure the moisture content of the reed. And we use the moisture content of the reed, same as we use for when we're machining timber, when we're making the pipe. So you know, we put it on there and we say how much moisture. Now this, for example, this got 12% in it, which is good for machining. So the reed has been hanging around out here. We put that in the meter and we have a look, and we can see that it's got 17%, which is, if that was sitting on the desk inside with the other reeds, it would have about 10-11%. The fact that it's been hanging around outside here in the environment, it's absorbed a little bit of moisture from the environment, but that's all it's done. Now in here I've got a reed that's been played. Now he played this for about 10 minutes, and at the moment it's 36, and when he finished playing it was 37% moisture. It didn't matter if he played for 20 minutes, he played up to 20 minutes. The moisture didn't increase past that 10 minutes. So you know yourself, when you're setting your system up, you're setting up your reeds, you blow your reeds in, you sort of normalise them. Well, within 10 minutes that was it, and that's all it would absorb. It wouldn't absorb any more than that. So it's got, RH won't tell us anything. We can't tell, RH won't tell us how much moisture is in the reed, but the meter will. So we know that after playing it, say 35, so let's just say 35 to 40% moisture. Let's just, soft reed might hold a bit more, hard reed might hold a bit less, maybe that's a hard reed. So let's just say it can hold up to 40%, which is a lot. So that's it, that's all it's going to hold. And the reason is because of the airflow going past it. There's only so much of the moisture in that air that's going to be absorbed by the cane medium. We had a comment by one of the people that you've got evaporation, and I once again, I maybe didn't go to paid hooky from science class, but when we talk about saturated air, it's saturated, it cannot absorb any more moisture. Therefore, it can't cause evaporation. It would have to be dry air to absorb moisture as it went past an object. So we're stuck with what we got. So as it stands, we know what the moisture content of the reed should be. We know how much it'll absorb. We know how much moisture we basically get into. Now, obviously that's going to vary depending on the blower. You'll hear about wet blowers, dry blowers, or whatever. Normally a wet blower is because so much saliva goes down. But the one thing that we do know is, irrespective of any of that, the amount of moisture the reed is subjected to is constant. It's from saturated air, from our breath. We can't put any more moisture than 100% saturated, so it can't get any wetter than that. So to say that the external environment can affect your reed is just bunkum, total bunkum. It's a pressure instrument, it's pressurised, and it's pressurised with 100% humid air, 100% RH, saturated air. The air cannot get into the bag from the outside, so the outside air can't affect it. Now the outside conditions can affect the sound, no conditions, but those sound waves travelling through dense air and thin air is different. But I'm talking about the effect on the reeds, how it affects the reeds, and how it affects the bag itself. So that's all we've got to concern ourselves with. So that takes care of those aspects. Now there is one condition that we do have to consider with the pipes, is that a drone, just long pipe, if it's in an environment, so like where we play in New Zealand for example, it's quite common for us to play, between 0 and 10 degrees, especially in the morning. It's very common. So if the drone gets cold, the saturated air going up the drip can condensate on the side, same as it has on here. That means that water, that moisture that condensates on the inside of that drone can run down, and that can affect your reed. There's no question about that. That's why you'll find that people with cold climate setup normally run the type of drone reeds that are a lot more tolerant to any ponding, whereas the normal dry don't care, because they don't have this problem. Here in Australia we don't have much of a problem with it, although up in the mountains there are places here where it does get a bit chilly from time to time, but generally you don't have a problem. But when we're playing over in New Zealand, in the winter you have a lot of problems. Even in the summer there, when you get down around 14 degrees, the water will, the saturated air will condensate within the tube, and that can cause you problems. But that's still nothing to do with the air inside your bag affecting your reeds. That's to do with an external condition that can affect them, and that's only under certain circumstances. Now, I hope that explains the points that I was making to those people that I've written to that didn't understand. I'm hoping I've addressed all the points that you made. If you want to contact me, if there's something you're not too sure about, there's questions you've got, by all means send me questions, but have a bit of a think about it first. Now, I'm doing a video, we did a bit of testing on the devices that use these things, and it's pretty much, anyway, it is what it is, but and without, trying to play the bull, not the man, we'll be as objective as we possibly can, as I have today. Today, I'm not trying to criticise any particular equipment, I'm just trying to give you numbers, I'm just trying to give you figures and facts, figures and physics, and that's all there is to it. Everything I told you can check, everything can be measured. It doesn't cost you much to buy the equipment to measure, or you can borrow it from somebody to measure it. So, like I say, I hope I've answered all those questions, and when I do the next video, I hope to answer or address the issues that have been raised around the devices that use these. Thanks for watching.